Hello class 7th, you all are welcome back again in your English class. Hope आप सभी अच्छे होंगे बच्चों और अच्छे से पढ़ाई कर रहे होंगे। बच्चों आज हम पढ़ेंगे लेसन नंबर 4 दैट इज बॉन्साई। बॉन्साई क्या है बच्चों? बॉन्साई एक ड्वार्फ ट्री है और श्रब है, एक छोटा पेड़ है, छोटा श्रब है। The art of growing these type of trees or medicinal plant is also known as bonsai only in Japanese. The art of growing these types of tree, जब कोई पेड़ इस तरह से उगता है बच्चों, जो मेडिसिनल प्लांट होता है, उसको जापान में बच्चों बॉन्साई बोलते हैं। Here in this chapter, you would get to know more about bonsai technique and bonsai species of plants. यहाँ आपको इस प्लांट में बच्चों, इस चैप्टर में बच्चों आपको bonsai टेक्निक के बारे में पता चलेगा और bonsai species of plants के बारे में पता चलेगा। Bonsai is a Japanese art form using miniature tree grow in a container. So bonsai एक जापानीज आर्ट है जहां बच्चों मिनिएचर ट्री यानी कि छोटी ट्री जो वो ग्रो करते हैं किसी कंटेनर में। Similar practice exists in other culture including the Chinese tradition of painting from which the art originated and the miniature living landscape of Vietnamese Honobi. The Japanese traditions date back over 1,000 years and has evolved its own unique aesthetics and terminology. सो हेयर बच्चों बॉन्साई एक आर्ट है जहां आप देख सकते हैं, यहाँ आपके डायग्राम में भी है कि बॉन्साई एट द नेशनल बॉन्साई एंड पीजिंग म्यूजियम एट यूनाइटेड स्टेट, जहां आप देख पा रहे हो कि एक कंटेनर में एक आपको पेड़ दिखाई दे रहा है। वो पेड़ का छोटा सा सैंपल है, मिनिएचर है, छोटा सा पेड़ आपको दिखाई दे रहा है। सो दिस आर्ट इन जापानीज इज नोन एज बॉन्साई. So bonsai in Japanese pronunciations of earlier Chinese term panjai. A bon का मतलब होता है बच्चों ट्रे लाइक पॉट typically used in bonsai culture. The word bonsai is often used in English as umbrella term for all miniature trees in container or pots, but this article focuses on bonsai as defined in the Japanese tradition. The purpose of bonsai are primarily क्या है बच्चों? Contemplation for the viewer and the pleasant exercise of effort of ingenuity for the grower. By contrast with other plant cultivation practice, bonsai is not intended for production of food for medicine or for creating yard size or park garden landscape. Instead, bonsai practice focus on long-term cultivation and shaping one of the more small trees growing in a container. सो बच्चों बॉन्साई का मेन इंटेंट ये नहीं है कि वो फूड प्रोड्यूस करे या मेडिसिन प्रोड्यूस करे या जो नेचुरल प्लांट्स करते हैं वो करे, बस इसका इंटेंट ये है कि इट फोकस ऑन द लॉन्ग टर्म कल्टीवेशन एंड शेपिंग ऑफ वन और मोर स्मॉल ट्रीज ग्रोइंग इन अ कंटेनर. A bonsai created at the beginning with a specimen of source material. This may be cutting, seedling or small tree of species suitable for bonsai development. बच्चों bonsai can be created from nearly any perennial woody stem tree or shrub species that produce true branches and can be cultivated to remain small through pot confinement with crown and root pruning. बच्चों कुछ स्पीशीज पॉपुलर हैं bonsai material because they have characteristics जैसे कि small leaves हैं, needles हैं that make the appropriate for the compact visual scope of bonsai. The source specimen is shaped to be relatively small and meet an aesthetic standard of bonsai. When the candidate bonsai nears its plant final size, it is planted as display pot. Usually one design for bonsai display is one of few expected shapes or proportion. From the point forward, its growth is restricted by pot environment. तो उसका environment बच्चों पूरा pot का ही होता है. Throughout the year, bonsai का shape जो है वो limited growth होता है. Redistributed foliar vigor to areas requiring further development and meet the artist's detailed design. History. So container grown plants including trees and many other parts of plants type, उनकी अपनी एक history है बच्चों, and they are of the time of Egyptian culture. However, the lineage of bonsai derives directly from the Chinese Beijing. Concept क्या है early version का बच्चों? Imperial embassy personnel and Buddhist students from Japan have been returning from mainland China with souvenirs including occasional container planting since 6th century. At last, 17 diplomatic missions were specifically sent from Japan to Tang Court between the years 603 and 839. From about the years 1970 comes the first lengthy work of fiction in Japanese, Utsubo Monogatari, The Tale of a Hollow Tree, which include a passage. So what is the passage? A tree that is left growing in its natural state in a crude thing. It is the only one it is kept close to human being who fashion it with loving care that its shape and style acquired the ability to move on. The tree therefore was already established by this time. The natural beauty became true beauty and only when the modified in accordance with human ideal. ये एक ऐसा पेड़ बच्चों जिसकी एबिलिटी है एक जगह से दूसरी जगह जाने की सो इससे ज्यादा खूबसूरत बात और कुछ हो भी नहीं सकती सो इन 1351 dwarf trees were displayed on short poles as portrayed in the Boki Akatoba scroll and बहुत सारे scrolls and paintings also including depictions of these kinds of trees. Potted landscape arrangements made during the next 100 years also included figurines after the Chinese fashion in order to add scale and theme. These miniatures would eventually be considered garnishes decidedly to be exhausted by Japanese artists just simplify करते हैं बच्चों their creation in the spirit of Zen Buddhism. Then we have Hachi no Ki. So around 14th century बच्चों the term dwarf potted trees was the ball trees. Hachi no Ki ये denote करता है बच्चों fairly deep pot को as opposed to the shallow part denoted by lawn bonsai. Then we have Hachinoki. The potted plant is also the title of No Play by Giami Motokiyo 1363144 जो based है story in the year 1383. बच्चों ये बताता है impoverished samurai who sacrificed the 3 last dwarf potted trees as firewood to provide warmth from the traveling monk on winter night. ये जो monk है ये official disguise है who later rewards the samurai by giving him 3 land whose names include the name of 3 types of samurai burn. Then we have Yume, plum, Matsu, pine and Sakura, cherry. In later centuries, a wood block prints by several artists would depict the popular drama. बच्चों, there were even fabric design of same name. Bonsai dating from 17th century सर्वाइव कर रहा है बच्चों आज तक सबसे ओल्डेस्ट लॉन्ग लिविंग बॉन्साई ट्री कंसीडर्ड है वन ऑफ द नेशनल ट्रेजर ऑफ जापान इन द टोक्यो इंपेरियल पैलेस कलेक्शन. The tree is considered to be at least 500 years old and was the first trained as bonsai by at latest the year 1610. The earliest known report by Westerner of Japanese dwarf potted tree was made in 1692 by George Meister. बच्चों by the end of 18th century जो bonsai cultivation है that was quite widespread and began to interest in the public. लोगों को उसके अंदर रुचि आने लगी. In Tenmei era 178188 an exhibit of traditional dwarf potted pines began to be held in every year Kyoto. Canonosaurus from 5 provinces and neighboring areas would bring 1 or 2 plants each to the snow in order to submit them to a visitor for ranking. Now let us read about the classical bonsai period. बच्चों, in Itami, Hyogo near Osaka, a group of scholars थे Chinese art gathered in the early 19th century to discuss about the art of miniature trees. Their version of these, which had been previously called Bunjin, Ryoki, Bunjin, Hachiyu, or the other terms were renamed bonsai. बच्चों ये जो हम terms पढ़ रहे हैं that is related to Chinese text. The Japanese pronunciation of Chinese term panjai. So this term had the connotation of shallower container in the which Japanese could now more successfully style small trees. But to the term bonsai had that cannot become regular use describing their dwarf potted trees nearly a century. Many other terms compositions adopted by this group they were derived from Kaishe in Gaden, the Japanese version of Jiaji Yayuan Hua Juhan. बच्चों अक्टूबर 13 1886 को मेजी एम्परर ने मूव किया हिज कैपिटल इन टोक्यो. बॉन्साई भी डिस्प्लेस किया गया विद बोथ साइड और आउटसाइड मेजी पैलेस where they remain important in affairs after of the palace. Bonsai placed in a grand setting. Bonsai को place किया गया बच्चों एक grand setting में of imperial palace had to be giant bonsai large enough to fill the grand space. The Meiji Emperor उन्होंने encourage किया interest of bonsai को. Then we have government official who did not appreciate bonsai fell out of favor. Soon बच्चों जितने भी members थे ministry के they had bonsai whether they like the tradition or not. Prince Ito was an exception. Any bonsai that the emperor gave him were the pass to Kijohi Ito. Kijohi Ito, it was a statesman of great influence behind the scenes and a noted bonsai collector who conducted research and experiment on these bonsai. Bonsai बच्चों shaping aesthetics and techniques, they were becoming more sophisticated. By the late 1860s, thick comb were webbed hemp fiber use होने लगा roughly to shape the trunk and the branches of miniature tree by trying to pulling them. इस process को बच्चों tedious or bothersome and final product was unsightly. Tips of branches would only be open flat. जो branches की tips थी वो flat थी. Long wavy branches, taco octopus style trees were mass produced and designed in the renamed capital Tokyo for the increasing foreign trade, while the more subtle, the delicate bunchen style trees designed in Kyoto and Osaka were used of in Japan. So Tokyo preferred करता है बच्चों big trunk out of proportion and did not approve of Kyoto's finely designed slender trunks, and this culture rivalry would continue for a century. An artistic bonsai concourse held हुआ था बच्चों टोक्यो में 1892 में and followed by the publication of 3-volume commemorative picture book. This demonstrated a new tendency to see bonsai as an independent art form. In 1903 बच्चों Tokyo Association Jura Kukai held showings of bonsai and ikebana of 2 Japanese style restaurants. 3 years later बच्चों bonsai gaho till 1913 बन चुका था बच्चों the first monthly magazine on the subject. By 1907, outskirts of Tokyo, Dove tree artists have formed a little colony of 20 to 30 houses, and from this entire center work find its way to all parts of the world. Its secrets are handed down from father to son in few families and are guarded with scrupulous care. बहुत सारे परिवार में बच्चों ये फादर अपने बेटे को देते हैं और उनको बहुत ज्यादा प्लांट्स को केयर किया जाता है. The rise of modern bonsai. बच्चों World War II के बाद number of trends made Japanese tradition of bonsai more and more accessible to the Western and world audience. One key trend बच्चों था increase the number, scope and prominence of bonsai exhibition. For example बच्चों Kufu 10 bonsai displays reappeared in 1947 after a 4-year cancellation and became a part of annual affairs. बच्चों ये display they are invited only for 8 days in February and continue up to these days. Largest both in quality and quantity of exhibitions होता है बच्चों held Japan में. Another key trend था बच्चों to increase in books and bonsai and related arts now being published in English and other language for audience outside Japan. 1952 में बच्चों Yuji Yoshimura, son of the leader in Japanese bonsai community, collaborated with German diplomat and author Alfred Cohen to give demonstration and the first formal bonsai courses open to public and outsiders in Tokyo. ये बुक बच्चों डिस्क्राइब करती है ट्रे लैंडस्केप मेड विद यंगर मटेरियल देन विद ट्रेडिशनली यूज्ड इन बॉन्साई, providing an alternative to the use of large older plants, few of which had escaped war damage. बच्चों by the beginning of 1970s these trends start हो गए ये merge होना, and a large display of bonsai and suzuki was held as a part of Expo 17 and a formal discussion was made by an international association enthusiasts. 3 monthly magazine were started this year बच्चों. So this was the first Sakufu 10 creative bonsai exhibit ये only event है in which professional bonsai growers exhibit traditional trees under their own names rather than the name of their owner. And ये organize किया गया था बच्चों, organized by Hideo Kato 19182001 at Daimaru Department Store in Tokyo. बच्चों इसका कल्टीवेशन एंड केयर कैसे होता है, तो ऑब्वियस सी बात है, ये मिनिएचर है तो इसमें एक डिफरेंट काइंड ऑफ टेक्निक रिक्वायर्ड होगी. सो सोर्सेज ऑफ बॉन्साई मटेरियल, क्या सोर्सेज है, जितने भी बॉन्साई स्टार्ट्स विद अ स्पेसिमेन ऑफ सोर्स मटेरियल द प्लांट ग्रोअर विशेस टू ट्रेन इनटू बॉन्साई फॉर्म. बॉन्साई प्रैक्टिस बच्चों यूजुअल प्रैक्टिस है फॉर प्लांट कल्टीवेशन from seeds is really used to obtain source material. To display the characteristic age appearance of bonsai within a reasonable time, the source plant is often miniature or at least partially grown when the bonsai creator begins work. So here we have the material. It is your propagation फॉर्म और सोर्स ट्री थ्रू कटिंग और लेयरिंग. पहले पेड़ की कटाई बच्चों कटिंग्स होती है, कटाई होती है, फिर उसको लेयर्स किया जाता है. नर्सरी स्टॉक्स यूज होते हैं डायरेक्टली फ्रॉम नर्सरी और फॉर्म अ गार्डन सेंटर, अ सिमिलर रीसेल एस्टेब्लिशमेंट. फिर कमर्शियल बॉन्साई ग्रोअर्स जो हैं विच इन अ जनरल सेल मैच्योर स्पेसिमेन दैट दे डिस्प्ले बॉन्साई एस्थेटिक्स क्वालिटी ऑलरेडी, collecting suitable bonsai material into its original wild situation, successfully moving it and replanting it in a container for development as bonsai. So this was all detail about bonsai. Bacho, what you have to do, you have to write some important parts related to bonsai and you have to learn them and also learn the exercises as well. मैं आपसे मिलूंगी आपकी अगली क्लास में. Till then, take care, read the chapter once again. Have a nice day. Bye bye.